I remember it was Super Bowl Sunday, and my husband had once again assaulted me. This time was the worst. I needed to go to the hospital, but I couldn't drive myself because my husband had beaten me so badly. From the bruising and swelling, I was pretty sure I had a broken arm and a concussion. I promised my husband that if he took me to the hospital, I wouldn't tell them it was his fault. He finally agreed. On the way home from the hospital, once he had me captive in the car, he began to scream and shout at me. He threatened he was going to kill me and dump my body where no one would ever find it. I shuddered from the vibrations of his words, and silently the tears ran down my face, and I quietly wiped them away because I didn't dare make a noise or show any sign of weakness. He drove me around and around in the dark for what seemed like hours. I have never been more afraid. I tried to speak calmly to him, and finally, I convinced him to take me home. When we got there, I quickly went to my bedroom, locked and barricaded myself inside. I threw myself onto my bed and quietly cried and cried until I had no more tears left. As most abusers, mine had successfully isolated me from my family and my friends. We were living in Virginia. I had no family there, no friends, no support. As I lay there in my bed, exhausted and broken, I finally thought of calling the one girlfriend that I'd gotten to know at the gym. We met in the locker room when I finally got up the nerve to ask her to take photos of the bruises on my back. It was the first time I thought to document my bruises. She asked how I got them, and I said, I fell. But she knew I was lying because her husband had been abusive to her too. Now I was dialing her number. I told her what had happened, and with urgency in her voice, she said, "You have to leave him now, because the next time he hurts you, he's gonna kill you." Hearing this said out loud, hearing this one more voice, suddenly gave me such strength. It made all the difference. That was the exact moment that I knew I had to leave. The next day, I called an attorney and I filed for divorce. Now, I don't want what happened to me to happen to you, which is why I want to share a list of what I call red flags with you. If your partner is doing any of these things to you, you are probably in an abusive relationship. Now, has your partner ever demanded to know where you are, who you're with, or what you're doing? My husband did all the time. Has your partner ever told you what to wear or what not to wear? Has your partner ever insisted you take drugs, illegal or prescription? Mine did. Has your partner ever threatened to physically harm you? My husband threatened me and then went on to beat me up. A big red flag. And later, he ignored the fact that he had physically abused me. Another red flag. If your partner has done any of these things to you, seek help by calling the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 800-799-7233 or 799-SAFE, SAFE, or text START to 88788. That's START, START, to 88788. While writing my book and preparing my speech, I've met and spoken to many women who have shared their stories of abuse with me. Like Julie. We had so much in common, I invited her to join me for lunch. But she couldn't possibly because she never had any extra money, even though she worked a full-time job. her husband insisted that she give him her whole paycheck. You see, abusers use money to control the activities and behavior of their partners. This is a red flag. My girlfriend Maria usually wore bright, colorful clothes to show off her shapely figure. But suddenly I noticed a huge change. Everything she wore now was big, baggy, dark, and a size too big. I asked if she'd lost weight, but she said no, this was how her new boyfriend liked her to dress. Is this a red flag? You may think that when your partner tells you what to wear or what not to wear, that it's cute or romantic. But actually, it may be their way of controlling you. Yet another red flag. I met Amy at my doctor's office. Her black eye was not well hidden behind her sunglasses, and her left wrist was wrapped with an ace bandage. I quietly started a conversation. Once I mentioned my book about abuse, she opened up. Slowly, she admitted that her husband of 16 years had beaten her yet again. She wanted a divorce, but she didn't want to lose her children. This was always his threat, that he would take the kids. Abusers usually begin abuse slowly and artfully, a little at a time. It might start with a push or they'll grab your wrists, but this can easily lead to more severe physical abuse like choking or hitting if you let the abuse progress. Physical abuse is definitely a red flag. For the longest time, I ignored my husband's bad behavior. Don't ignore it. Even the friends that I finally talked to about my problem, they wrote it off as harmless. They did not want to believe that my husband could be one of those guys, an abuser. My husband's behavior was hurtful, dangerous, and getting worse. It wasn't just because he had a bad day at work or because he forgot to eat lunch. It was all about power and control of me. Oh, and by the way, after I filed for divorce, it took a whole year before it was final. I knew if I stayed in Virginia, I wouldn't be safe. So as soon as I could, I made plans to leave Virginia and escape my abusive ex-husband. I quickly packed boxes and loaded my car, and then left everything else behind. My cousin flew in from out of state, and finally, with a full SUV, my cousin, and my 2 dogs in tow, I was able to drive away in the middle of the night to begin my new life. So the moral of this story is, if I can escape and begin a new life, you can too. But I really need you to hear me. Let me be that one more voice for you. And plant this firmly in your mind, and remember, never blame yourself for what someone else is doing to you. And finally, abuse is not your fault. Abuse is not your fault. Abuse is not your fault. Thank you.